I'm sure you've heard about tariffs. To make it make sense, we have Dr. Fry from Public Administration. Dr. Fry, what is a tariff?
Yeah, so tariffs are pretty simple. They're actually like taxes. So you can think about a tariff as a tax on goods that are being imported from other countries.
So, who pays tariffs?
Yeah, so that is something that's been very misunderstood in the media and been misstated by many politicians. So when the US levies a tax, it is the US and the US consumers who are paying the tax.
Mm.
So we, as the US, do not have the authority to tax other countries and
Mhm.
other companies in other countries.
Mhm.
So, for example, if we have a corn tariff, for example, a 10% corn tariff,
Mhm.
when the US brings in an import of corn,
Mhm.
we have to pay the government 10% above the value that we're importing. So
Mm.
it's the US and the consumers that are going to bear that burden.
So, do tariffs increase prices?
They do. Evidence has shown that when we put tariffs on goods, the goods will increase by the amount of the tax, by the amount of the tariff. So, typically speaking, let's bring our example back of the corn tariff.
Mhm.
If we have a 10% tariff on corn, when the goods are imported, that US firm will now face a 10% higher cost.
Mm.
And that cost will be have to be deflected somehow so that firm can make money.
Mhm.
So what they typically will do is raise their own prices by the amount of the tariff.
Are there any downstream effects?
There are actually, in the case of corn, for example, if we think about what corn is used for, it's used for things like corn syrup. It's used for feed for animals that
Mhm.
produce pork, beef, chicken, and other products like milk.
Mhm.
So when we raise the price for corn because of tariffs, now those products also have higher costs.
Mm.
And as a result of that, we're going to see prices increase for all of those downstream industries as well. So it
Okay.
has this unintended effect of increasing both the price of where the tariff is placed
Mhm.
and many other industries. So that is one reason why it's not a great policy because it has these unintended effects.
What would be an argument? Like, why exact a tariff?
Yeah, that's a great question. From an economist perspective, it is not an efficient or effective policy. Tariffs have a lot of downstream effects on prices, and they have a lot of unintended consequences like other countries giving a counter tariff.
Mm.
So, because of this, free trade is impeded and
Mhm.
it will slow down our economy.
Mhm.
So, from an economics perspective, tariffs are never going to be a good policy.
Mm.
Now, from a political perspective, the current administration may use it as a tool for negotiation
Mhm.
and other types of political tactics.
Mm.
In addition, you could take the tariff money that the government is collecting and decide to distribute it in a way that makes sense to the government. So
Mm.
there are some benefits.
Mhm.
In addition, the industry that's being tariffed would also be somewhat protected.
Mm.
They will be encouraged to produce more domestically. But
Mm.
as a long run strategy, this is not a good um, strategy for growth because it will, in the end, prevent us from trading that same good in the world market.
Are there any examples of tariffs gone wrong?
Yes, there's actually a very famous example of where there was a broad based tariff in the US and it didn't go well. So, this is known as the Smoot Hawley Tariff Act.
Mm.
This was in 1930. And if you recall, in 1930, there was the Great Depression in
Mhm.
progress. Initially, this was put in place in order to protect farming industry. However, because of the political process and abdication of many different industries,
Mhm.
there were over 20,000 industries that had tariffs placed on them.
Oh, wow.
And so once that act was passed, not only was the Great Depression in progress and unemployment was high,
Mhm.
free trade pretty much halted,
Mm.
making the Depression even worse.
Wow.
The other unintended effect of this tariff act was that um, Congress did not see the possibility that there was going to be counter tariffs. And
Mm.
so all of these counter tariffs were placed on the economy, making the whole world pretty much halt with trade.
Mhm.
So this made the economic situation worse.
Yeah.
This example is why now when Congress or the president talks about tariffs that
Mhm.
economists and other experts will point to the Smoot-Hawley Act as an example of tariffs gone wrong,
Mhm.
why we shouldn't be, imposing a broad-based tariff on the U.S. economy.
Yeah. Have the tariffs from the Trump administration been successful from an economist point of view?
Yeah, so there were tariffs placed in 2018 on the steel industry.
Mhm.
And at the time, part of the motivation was to increase employment in that industry.
Mhm.
It's been declining over time, not only in production, but also in employment.
Mhm.
So part of the motivation for that administration to place tariffs was to help prop up that industry. However, that hasn't really come to fruition. We've had
Mm.
enough time since then to look at the effects. And empirically, we have not seen the growth in employment, and we have not seen production spike to the
Mm.
extent that we would need to have it to be a world leader.
Mhm.
So, generally speaking, no, the steel tariffs have not been successful.
So people want to know more about tariffs and this topic. What can they do?
Yeah, so these topics are taught in a basic economics course. So students can go and take macroeconomics and learn more about free trade and the benefits of free trade,
Mhm.
and why tariffs aren't a really good policy.
Thank you.